Hey everybody, my name is Chris Hare from the Climate Solutions Center. Today we're going to talk about composting. Okay, so in my time as Director of Sustainability for a large college campus in Colorado, some of the most frequent questions I would get are around waste diversion, right? Recycling and compost specifically. And we all know that we produce a lot of waste as a society, as a nation, as a world. And so what can we do about it other than just throwing it out, throwing it away, which away doesn't really exist. We should know that by now, right? Part of the issue is that people perceive recycling as being a broken system. So before we move on to compost, I just wanted to touch on that real quick. Recycling is not a broken system. What is broken is how much low-grade plastics we're producing, right? So these low-grade plastics, recycling as a system is based on commodities and the market for those commodities, right? How much is that product worth to a manufacturer after recycling? So glass, aluminum, those things can be recycled infinitely. So they have a much higher value than, say, low-grade plastics like a cup that you would get from a coffee place that's, you know, the cold cup, the clear cup, right? These have very little value in comparison. So that's one of the main reasons that these low-grade plastics have a hard time getting recycled. The other piece is just how confusing it is, right? If you take that cup I was just talking about, flip it over, look on the bottom, it has a recycling emblem with a number, sometimes some letters, right? Here's the fact of the day. Just because something has a recycling logo on the bottom does not mean it is recyclable. That is a resin number. All it does is tell you what type of plastic resin is used to make this product. It in no way means that it goes in your recycle bin, right? So that is incredibly confusing for consumers. Another reason is that locally, what's recyclable, it could be totally different than the other side of town or the town 40 minutes south of you. For example, in Denver, we have a pretty robust system. We can take the paper coffee cups that are lined with plastic. That's pretty rare. We can take packing styrofoam. All sorts of different things can go in our facility versus, you know, Colorado Springs or Fort Collins may not be able to do those things. So you can't speak universally about what is recyclable, right? So, that being said, what are our options? Well, one of our best options is reduce consumption, right? But when that's not feasible, which it's difficult to get millions of people on the same page for reducing consumption since we're all so used to it at this point, that's where compost comes in. So, what is compost then? And why is it better than recycling or putting things in the landfill, right? Well, compost basically is a way to take organic materials, and by organic I don't mean USDA certified organic, I mean, you know, biodegradable. I mean a head of lettuce, a tomato, you know, a burger, something like that. These things can be composted in a municipal system, in a city system. In your backyard you don't want to put meat, but that's a different video, right? So instead of it going to a landfill and being wasted, it can be recycled into a soil amendment. So what you do is you pile all these things together, heat it up to a certain amount, and I'm way oversimplifying here, but at the end of a certain period of time, based on, you know, the different elements involved, like the temperature and exposure, then it becomes like soil. So you can add it to soil to add new nutrients to it and make the food that you grow with it more nutritious, right? So that's what compost is in a nutshell. And why do we need it? It's basically, here's the way I like to explain it. I call it my bananecdote, right? Let's take the lowly banana peel. If I throw a banana peel into a landfill, what do you think happens to it, right? A lot of people think it'll break down naturally over time, not a big deal. Why should we compost? Well, that's not true, and here's why. When I throw that banana peel into the landfill, it goes into a pile of things. More things are piled on top of it. Bulldozers run over it over and over and over again to pack it and pack it and pack it, and then eventually it's covered, right? So the point being that it's an environment with no oxygen, or an anaerobic environment. In this environment, biodegradable materials, organic materials like banana peel, are not able to break down naturally. So what happens is it can last, this banana peel, 20, 25 years potentially. And when it does break down, it emits methane. Methane is roughly 35 times more potent of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is, right? So it sits there and sits there for years. There's one case I have cited in this article, if you're interested, where they found a head of lettuce perfectly intact after 25 years in a landfill. 25 years. So if I take that same banana peel and I throw it into a compost bin, let's pretend that your city has access to it, even if it doesn't, they take it away to their windrows or however they do their composting, and in maybe 90 days, something around there, it will have broken down along with a bunch of other items into, like I said, a soil amendment. That's then, in our situation here in Denver, bagged and sold for people to buy and add to their own gardens, or given to farms so that they can use it. So instead of that banana peel sitting in a landfill for 20, 25 years, it is reusable in just a couple months, right? That's, to me, a mind-blowing difference, something that is an absolute no-brainer, and something that we should be able to advocate for. If we're not dealing with organic materials, let's go back to the coffee cup, right? If it's the plastic cold drink coffee cup, if you make that instead out of compostable plastics, which you can do, it will only break down in an industrial facility, not your backyard, because it hits a higher temperature. However, that way, even with the way that these business models work currently, it's still possible to do that. And instead of it being a plastic item that's maybe probably not recyclable, it could be a compostable item, which would definitely be compostable. If something is compostable, it is certified. BPI certified is what it's called. That's the leading certification, so I would look for that if you're looking for compostable items. And for every item that is tested, verified, compostable, it will break down. There is nothing like that for plastics, right? I can just say that my packaging is recyclable, and that's theoretically true even if it's in one city in the United States, right? So based on your location, it totally varies. Now, not every city has compost, but we're moving in that direction. Compost is going to be a critical piece to reducing emissions. Also, when it breaks down, when this banana breaks down in a compost heap, it does not emit methane. It breaks down naturally in an aerobic environment, that means with oxygen, and when it does so, it releases CO2. CO2 is normally the bad guy, but like I said, methane is about 35 times more potent than CO2. So we want things to be composted where possible. Why is it that landfills are so bad for the environment? Well, the way a landfill works, if you're not familiar, is that they'll often just dig a big hole into the land, line it with plastics and other things to prevent leaching, right? We don't want the soup from all this nasty landfill stuff to seep out into the groundwater, right? That would be a major issue. So what they do is they seal it, and then they pack all this stuff into the hole, pack it and pack it and pack it, bulldozers over it and over it and over it to get it as dense as humanly possible, and then eventually they will cover it. A lot of parks around the U.S. are actually former landfills. As the city expands, they have to keep moving the landfill out, and so as they do that, they kind of cap the landfills that were already inside the city limits, if that makes sense. So they just sit there forever and ever and ever, and there's all sorts of stats you can look at about, diapers lasting 450 years, and how long glass or aluminum will last if it doesn't make it into the recycling stream. And it's just abhorrent, right? So we want to keep things out of the landfill whenever possible. So just how big of an impact can compost have as far as the United States combating climate change? Well, food waste combined with yard trimmings, so the compostable materials out of the measured municipal waste system, which the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for, adds up to about a third of that total, right? So there were 292 million tons of material overall in the municipal waste system in 2018. These numbers are from. And 1/3 of that, or 98.5 million tons, could have been composted. If we compost all of that, we're cutting back on those methane emissions. We're turning things into soil amendments that can be used to grow better food, right? So a third of the U.S. municipal waste, which is household waste, could have been composted. That's huge. That's a huge amount of material. So if we can get more municipal systems going, if we can get more backyard compost going, we can make a gigantic difference in this. Out in 2018, only 25 million tons. Out of that 292 million, only 25 million was composted. I'm hoping those numbers are going up, but we need to go up a lot faster. So, with everyone working together, we can compost more. More importantly, though, is wasting less. Over a third of food worldwide is wasted. It goes through the growing process. All this water, all these pesticides are sprayed, all this land is taken up. For what? Right? If a third of food is wasted, what are we even doing here? So we need to start there. But if we have to be able to dispose of something, it has to be compost. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you learned something new about compost, or a little bit about recycling or landfills and how they work. Climate change is here. We need to use all the solutions that we can. You're a huge part of those solutions. Thanks for listening. We're the Climate Solutions Center. Please hit that subscribe button below, and I'll also link in the description to one of my articles that I wrote that sources all the information that I just told you, so that you can look up the references for yourself. Thank you.